Democrats who voted for health care reform, believe it or not, are getting death threats. And elected Republicans are practically silent on the issue. I got a lot to say about this coming up in just a moment. Republicans are hoping the courts will kill health care reform in this country. I'll go head to head with an attorney general who's suing the federal government. That's coming up. Plus, shocking numbers on just how many American jobs have been shipped to China and how every state has been hit by outsourcing. That's coming up on the program. But, of course, the story that's got me fired up tonight, I can't believe it's come to this point. Hate is shaking the halls of the Congress. Is this why they wanted to get elected? Give me a break. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer said today that members of his caucus are being threatened. Today, Capitol Police and the FBI briefed Democrats about the incidents of violence. The FBI has started a preliminary investigation after fuel lines were cut at the brother of Virginia Congressman Tom Perriello's home. Lynchburg Tea Party member Mike Troxell was trying to post the congressman's address, but posted his brother's by mistake. One of those bright ones out there. On Monday, he posted this online. Just in case any of his friends and neighbors want to drop by and say hi and express their thanks regarding his vote for health care. Nothing quite does that like a good face-to-face chat. It's as much more personal touch to it. Now, just think about what's happening here. Would you like it if someone did that to you? Would you like it if you were the boss of a company or if you were a supervisor and somebody posted that and said, why don't you go over to their house? What is going on here? Tea Partiers, is this your mission? Dick Armey, where's your voice tonight? Now, we don't know if this was an act of political terrorism. At this hour, elected members of the Congress are nervous, and they should be. Hoyer wants Republicans to stand up and condemn these threats.
I would hope that we would join together jointly and make it very clear that none of us condone this kind of activity. And when we see it, that we speak out strongly in opposition to it. And I would hope that we would do that going forward.
So here's the number. Steny Hoyer said more than 10 House Democrats have reported incidents of threats or other forms of harassment because they supported a health care bill. Now, this is as serious as it gets, folks. We haven't seen this kind of stuff happen in this country since the days of civil rights back in the 60s, where elected leaders are encouraging this stuff today. What's going on? Listen to Majority Whip Jim Clyburn.
I think all of us learned some great lessons from the 60s and 70s. And there are some lessons that none of us want to repeat. But one thing that we know, as Steny Hoyer just said, silence gives consent.
And, of course, some are not so silent. Sarah Palin loves to get involved, doesn't she? She posted a list of 20 members of Congress that conservatives should target in their 2010 on her Facebook page. She writes, well, aim for these races. I mean, this is crazy. And many others. This is just the first salvo in a fight to elect people across the nation who will bring common sense to Washington. Just take a look at this map and how she put it out. She actually put crosshairs on a map and is talking about elected members of the Congress. Hoyer made this comment about that today.
When people start talking in the rhetoric of putting people on firing lines, that if they don't do something, they will have physical harm done to them, other rhetoric of that type, or they put a target on their faces with crosshairs, that activity ought to be unacceptable in our democracy.
Congresswoman Louise Slaughter of New York and Bart Stupak of Michigan. Oh, I guess the Tea Partiers are happy about this. Those two representatives have received death threats. Right-wing media and members of the Congress on the right bear, I think, major responsibility for this. For the past year, they have spent so much time whipping up their base about socialism, death panels, and a government takeover. A Harris poll shows 24% of Republicans think President Obama is the Antichrist. What are we dealing with here? These threats are the culmination of the misinformation campaign that the Republicans have engaged in. Now, they've been lying from the start about health care reform, and they've whipped everybody up about it, and they just aren't attacking the Democrats. Oh, no, anybody who's associated with it. They're on a crusade to professionally smear the Congressional Budget Office. After the CBO numbers show that health care, this bill, will actually save money. It'll save $138 billion over the first 10 years, and it will cut the deficit by $1.2 trillion over the second 10 years. Folks, numbers don't lie. The Republicans do. The CBO is not some left-wing think tank. It's a nonpartisan government agency that provides economic data for both Democrats and Republicans in the Congress, and they've been doing it for years. And the Republicans can't argue with the facts. So what do? They decide to attack the messenger, calling it a joke. It's no good. These numbers are phony. These, I thought, were professional people at the CBO. Joining me now is North Dakota Senator Kent Conrad. He is the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee and, of course, is very involved in the process of selecting the director of the Congressional Budget Office. Kent, great to have you with us tonight. I appreciate your time.
Good to be with you.
I wanted to give somebody in the Congress an opportunity to speak to how professional the CBO is and just how they operate. Are these 250 people that work in the CBO, are they political hacks? Who are they? What are they?
These are professionals. They're hired on a nonpartisan basis. They are very much respected by members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. Look, I disagree with them from time to time, but I respect their independence and their need to be independent. If we're going to have an objective scorekeeper, let me just say this. It's fascinating that some Republicans now are accusing the CBO of having a political bias, when earlier this year, the director of CBO, Director Elmendorf, testified before my committee that some of the earlier versions of health care reform did not reduce the deficit, did not bend the cost curve in the right way. They didn't complain then because he was finding what they wanted to have found. Now that the legislation has been changed so that it does reduce the deficit, and the CBO has found precisely that, they claim bias. So they are clearly talking out of both sides of their mouth. They were praising him when he agreed with them earlier in the year on different drafts of the bill. They criticize him now when the legislation has been changed to, in fact, reduce the deficit in both the short term and the long term. And as you said, over the next decade to reduce the deficit by over $1 trillion. Not a million, not a billion, $1 trillion.
Senator, you believe the numbers?
Look, I think all of us know that making these forecasts is an imperfect business. Do I believe the objectivity and the professionalism of the people at CBO? I absolutely do.
Look, I'm
the chairman.
I think the point here that you are the chairman of the Budget Committee, no doubt, and you've spent your whole career in Washington on finance and budget. So, but the righties are out there presenting the case that, hey, the CBO is cooking the books so we can pass health care in this country.
Let me just say this to you. You remember I advanced a proposal called the cooperative proposal for nonprofit insurance.
I do.
I am the chairman of the Budget Committee, and CBO criticized my proposal. So I think that says a lot about their independence. I didn't agree with them, but they criticized the proposal by the chairman of the committee that oversees them.
Yeah.
I think that tells you something about their professionalism. And while I may have disagreed with them on that, I absolutely respect their integrity.
How are we doing in the Senate, Senator? How's this reconciliation coming along? Do you expect it to go pretty smooth from here on out?
I do. I think there'll probably be a hiccup along the way, but I think we're in very strong shape to finish this legislation in the next 24 hours or so.
Okay, Senator, good to have you with us, and thanks for all your hard work on health care reform. And you are the numbers guy. I think you're the most credible guy in Washington when it comes to knowing the numbers, and I think somebody needs to stand up for the CBO. I appreciate your time.
Glad to do it.
Senator Conrad from North Dakota, chairman of the Budget Committee. I want to get back